Hi, welcome to another Draft Science video presentation. Well, I throw in a welcome now and then. What the hell? But likely you're not. So comments mostly, I think, because there's a lot of them and they're really crazy, and it's just it's hard to say, who's fringe here. These people are saying things that obviously I've watched a lot of physics lectures and Professor Lewin types, and they don't say any of this stuff. They don't teach any of this stuff that they say is the real physics. And so that's part of this argument is, are these people defending conventional physics, or are they conventioning some other flat earth theory of their own? Because it's clearly not taught as physics. So anyway, again, you say two objects with the same momentum and different kinetic energy. So understand kinetic energy is just made up, but fine. Hit a spring, they will compress it the same. Yes. But first of all, this is 100% wrong, and you never gave any evidence for this. So obviously I have given evidence for it, and you just are rejecting the evidence. You're saying the evidence doesn't mean anything to you because the experiment wasn't done exactly the way you want to do. So in spite of the fact that the experiment pretty much shows something.
Now we're going to do an experiment whereby I'm going to make M2 twice the mass. M2 is 488 plus or minus 1 gram. Now that's going to be interesting, because now you really begin to test the conservation of momentum.
So he's just talking shit is your accusation. Okay, there is no conservation of momentum. There's no need to conserve the momentum. We can create two different momentums with exactly the same spring compression. That's your assertion. Okay, you're arguing with this MIT professor. You're not really arguing with me now. You're arguing with what he's teaching. So explain that in your comment, how he's wrong, and you never told him he's wrong. You never argued with him he's wrong. That, oh, it's terrible. Why don't you have a sentence somewhere? It's terrible that MIT teaches conservation of momentum because it's so stupid. Put that in your comment, and I have a whole lot more respect for it. But in the context, I can't have any respect for it. I mean, here you first overtly lie that I haven't provided any evidence. Stephen Bro's experiment's a piece of evidence, by the way. I showed you the wooden block thing. I did it in slow-mo, okay, and showed you essentially that the velocities are always the same for the same mass. And this experiment shows the same thing. It doesn't matter what you do with the masses as long as there's some mass. Obviously, if the spring feels if there's no mass on one side, the spring itself will move. Okay, but if there's any mass, the spring isn't going to move, and it will produce the same energy in both directions. And you haven't refuted that with any evidence. You're the one who has no evidence. Let's play some more.
The momentum before is 0. I burn the wire, momentum afterwards is also 0.
So again, it's kind of silly to say the momentum is 0, because we know the momentum is stored as a force in the spring. Okay, the momentum is in. I mean, to say that if I hold two magnets, I can't get these little magnets apart. I can't even, and you wouldn't be able to see them anyway. But I mean, it's an incredibly strong force between these two little tiny magnets, little tiny things. And if I put them in a certain position, the force is there, constant. It's a constant force now. I've created a constant force. Technically. I mean, it's going to be constant until I change the positions. And, it's a real force. There's a real thing there. And that's what's happening inside of a spring, is the little electrons and protons are being put in magnetic positions they find not comfortable, in the sense that there's a very strong amount of force that's pulling them out of that condition, but they can't move out of that condition until the spring changes shape. So they can't change their position until the spring allows the natural position to be restored. And that's the force is in that form. And then all you're doing is converting that into motion in some other object. You're transferring that energy into another object. the restorative energy of the spring is being put into something else. So the spring restores at a much slower rate. You know, the electrons and protons want to restore this fast. And because you put an object on there, it can only restore at some slower velocity. And the velocity will be completely inversely proportional to the mass, as the MIT professor says. Okay, you'll always get twice the velocity or half the velocity, changing the masses. Okay, it won't be 1.4. He's not teaching 1.4. There's no 1.4 on his blackboard anywhere. So you're telling me I should believe you, okay, yet you're disagreeing with this college professor. You do understand that, right? That you have to not defeat just me in my argument. You have to defeat him in his argument. Because he's not making the same argument you're making. He's making a completely different argument. He's overtly saying you must always conserve momentum. Kinetic energy, it's kind of fudgeable.
But the velocities, I erased this. V2 prime divided by V1 prime equals M1 divided by M2.
Now, that's a formula. Do you understand? He's teaching a formula you don't agree with. You say this inverse relationship doesn't exist. You're saying this math is fallacious and mushy and shitty. This should be 1.4. Okay, it isn't. There's no inverse proportionality. I can't just do this cross multiplication thing and come up with a neutral fraction, 1. So what's your explanation? Again, you're not arguing with me. You're arguing with Professor Lewin. And yet you're doing it in this patronizing, obscene way where you're saying you have all this evidence that he's wrong, and yet you've never presented it, and you won't present it here, but you'll just insult me? Wow. Yeah, that just shows how little character you have, doesn't it?
And so twice the mass will get half the speed.
Okay, I mean, how many times does he have to exactly say those words before you'll concede? Oh yeah, well that's what he's teaching. That seems to be the conventional theory, I guess. I guess I must be arguing some other theory because conventional physics isn't arguing what you're arguing. Half the mass, twice the speed. I mean, how many times does he have to have twice the mass, half the speed? How many times does he have to say it before you concede? That's the fact.
And so now you're going to see that one car will go twice as slow as the other. That's the only way that nature can conserve momentum.
So again, he's saying it pretty clearly, isn't he? So again, you think Professor Lewin's off the rails. You think he's a truther. You think he's a flat earther.
Nature has no choice. Nature can deal with kinetic energy one way or another, but it cannot finagle momentum. So it must give the more massive car half the speed than it gives the other car.
All right. So again, what is there to argue here? Your argument is that okay? So let's just understand what these experiments prove. The two of them that I showed. Okay, just to be clear that they're the argument they're hanging on, the piece of evidence they're saying that hasn't been produced, is so trivial in light of what has been. Okay, so the idea is you have a one mass here, and you have a one mass over here, okay, and then you have a coiled spring. Well, both cars leave at exactly the same velocity. Velocities are equal. All right, now if I put a two mass over here, okay, and we have the one mass over here, okay, the one mass does exactly the same thing it did the last time. These two are equal now. All right, but this velocity would be 1/2 the velocity. He clearly just said it, okay? So it's not my rule, it's not my law, it's his law. It's MIT telling you that. So unravel MIT. All right, and then if I, theoretically, you could just argue that, well, what's going to be your theory? That when I put twice as much mass on one side, I get the same result. I get the same amount of joules going this way. Same number, same amount of energy going this way, in the form of the same momentum. I have the same momentum going the other way, okay? So it's the same momentum. You say there's more kinetic energy here than there is here. That we somehow, when we put the two mass on, we lost 1/2, okay, the kinetic energy. Well, that's not conservational, obviously, because we didn't get more speed over here. We got the same speed here, same speed, so we didn't gain anything going this way. So, and the theory would be, well, look, if 2 mass doesn't change it, 3 mass isn't going to change it, 15 million mass isn't going to change it. This is always going to be just as much as the speed, the speed of the spring can move in this direction with this much mass on it. And that's all it can do. This is the best it can do. And it won't do any better, even if I put a brick wall here. It's not going to do any better than it did right here or it did right here. All right, and the wooden blocks really showed it because we went to 3 and it went to 4, and this velocity did not change. I mean, they were going towards each other in that experiment. The velocity going this way did not change. So I put a 1 mass here, I put a 2 mass here, I put a 3 mass here, I put a 4 mass here. This velocity always stayed the same. This momentum always stayed the same. This kinetic energy always stayed the same. And you can't change it. Well, it wouldn't be the same kinetic energy because this side always does the same thing. It's this side you're saying that somehow it lost a big pile of kinetic energy here. Gigantic losses here. So you lost half of it here, then you lost another half here, then you lost another half here. You just keep losing more and more kinetic energy. So you have a kinetic energy of 10 here, you have a kinetic energy of 100 here. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. Your theory. And such. Guess I should pause to just move this shit around. Anyway, alright, so back to your comment. So this idea that you haven't presented any evidence is just a lie. I mean, disgusting lie. And you have never give any evidence for this. So again, we could play the Stephen Bro video. I mean, the end of his, he calls Gary's cheat. Now, it's really just not good enough quality, unfortunately, to really test the velocity. Okay, because everything's just, there's so few frames to work with here. But you're saying that was only 0.4 faster than this. So even though it does by vision alone look like this is going half as fast, you're saying it's only going 0.4. The red thing's only going 0.4 faster. That's your theory. And what evidence did you show us or me or anyone? So watch the speed of it. Well, that seems pretty fast, right? It got blurry, lost some frame rates, and now we go back to the white one. Yeah, that looks like half the speed to me. All right, same spring compression. All right, completely consistent with Professor Lewin's results. So now you're saying I haven't provided any evidence. Do you see how dishonest you are? You haven't refuted my evidence with a single argument, theory, or piece of evidence. You haven't produced anything to challenge that. Okay, except Stephen Bro's kind of silly staple experiment, all right, for which we have no proven, in no way at all has it been proven that staples collect energy evenly. That is, that they move the same amount with slow things as they do for heavy things, that they measure actual energy. All right, so anyway, evidence for this. You're just saying it like is correct, but you never proved it. So again, I don't have to prove it. I just have to provide evidence and reasoning, and that's what I've provided. I've explained that there was absolutely nothing wrong with Newton's mechanics, and yet you're saying it was fundamentally broken and needed to be fixed by Leibniz, and that we should now call Leibniz's theory, which was an attack against Newton's physics, Newton's physics. And you think that's a logical chain of reasoning. I'm saying that's as illogical as saying Einstein invented entanglement. It's just as big a lie and just the biggest pile of shit you could possibly have, when Einstein was completely against the whole kind of concept that was making fun of it. How the hell do you convert that into and he invented it? Okay, also conservation of energy and Newton's laws say that what you said is wrong. So again, there's nothing I've said. You haven't demonstrated anything I've said is inconsistent with Newton's physics. So again, just another lie you spew. You have no evidence for that. Okay, nothing. All I've done is restate Newton's laws, and that's it. Okay, I haven't changed them. I've just attempted to explain to you the subtleties where Newton wasn't aware of the existence of electrons and protons and the existence of atoms in their magnetic form or any of that stuff. So yes, he couldn't quite model it as it is. He certainly didn't know that heat was the byproduct of the eventual death of momentum. Momentum dies as heat, in the sense that we no longer can follow it. So there is not any extra energy. The kinetic energy of the bodies will become elastic energy of the spring. So again, he's allowed to say elastic energy turns into kinetic. I mean, elastic energy is somehow a reasonable term, but to say it's just stored momentum isn't reasonable. Did he provide any reasoning for why his rhetoric's okay and my rhetoric's isn't okay? No reasoning at all. If they have the same kinetic energy, they will compress the spring the same. So again, just complete nonsense. No evidence of this fact at all, blah, 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 blah. The real facts indicate that if I plow the 10-ton train going 5 miles an hour into some sort of collection device, and the 5-ton train going 10 miles an hour and the 10-ton train going 5 miles an hour into a good collecting device like a spring, that they will in fact compress it the same amount and demonstrate they have the same total energy. Total energy in a direction. Total energy from motion. You can get the result using only Newton's laws. You can get the result using only Newton's laws. Take Newton's second law. So again, somehow he thinks you can convert something as simple. Okay, so let's do the math, a little bit of it. Yeah, pause. Alright, should be back. So let's understand what they're saying. They're saying that this formula, which says force equals, and then it's change in momentum, P, alright, which is just velocity times mass over change in time. Now, why would the change in time be there? Why would time matter? Let's say I had a circular disc that was spinning, and I was going to launch something. What would be time? I mean, should I count? Oh, it's being pushed. It's being pushed. It's being pushed. It's going faster. It's going fast. No, it's not. It's going the same speed. It's stuck on the disc, and I'm just going to release it from the disc, and it's going to leave it a velocity. There's no time. It's already accelerated. It's already moving the velocity. I'm just releasing it. There's no time involved at all. So the force applied was the force of its momentum. So I'm just saying the simple way to understand this is, first of all, Professor Lewin will overtly say to you, all the physicists will overtly say to you, this formula is intended to be used in the circumstance of a constant force. That is like gravity. That's why this time thing is here. Gravity is pushing you every millisecond. Push, 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 push. It's a constant force, constantly pushing, constantly adding, constantly adding, constantly adding, constantly adding. And it only stops adding when you can't move any. You're not free to fall. So then the counter force eats up the gravity, eats up the gravity, eats up the gravity, eats up the gravity. Okay, so that's the only way the gravity is ineffective, is if there's some other force, okay, pushing you against it. The force of the pressure of the inside of the earth, for example. That's why the time is in there. So this doesn't have anything to do with, what's the force inside of an object moving. Okay, this doesn't have anything to do with that, because there's no assumption there's a constant external force pushing the thing, and that's why it's moving. No, the whole theory is that stuff moves without needing a constant force anymore. It already has the force in its momentum. It already has a certain number of weight or joules. Now, weight is the important part of this, because what is this theory basically telling you is this is why stuff weighs something. Newton's telling you, why did he put momentum here? Why did he put the change in mv when he knew he's not changing the mass? Well, because he knew that what he is changing is the weight, okay, and that you can't really understand weight without the mass being there, okay. It's kind of essential to understand the concept of weight. And what he's really telling you is you don't even need this change. All you need is what the force you applied. So you just say new force, and you just say, what did it do to your momentum? So final, momentum final. And that's all you need to know. Mass times velocity. What's your final momentum? And that'll tell you what the added force was. So you have a thing existing. You're going to apply an F. All you need to know is Well, how did I change its momentum? And I'll know exactly how much momentum was in the force. The force is the momentum. So let's understand. They're saying that this very simple formula, okay, F equals, okay, change in momentum, we'll use their little d thing, change in P over change in time, okay. They say this simple formula needs to be simplified. It's not simple enough. I need to derive it into something. I need to change it into something. Somehow this isn't simple enough, and I need to convert it into, force equals 1/2 mv squared. I need to do that to it. No, I don't need to do that to it. This says all you need to know right here. It's basically telling you whatever the change in the momentum is, that's what the force is. It's saying it overtly. I just make time 1. You could understand, oh yeah, I got rid of the fraction, so let's just make the time 1 second. And my change in the momentum will be the same as the change in the force. It'll be the same as the force. The force equals the change in the momentum. So whatever I did with the force, it's going to equal the change in the momentum. So he says that's not good math. I say prove it. Yeah, prove that Newton was wrong to do that and nothing more. So again, F equals ma is a derivative of Newton's mechanics. It's essentially just saying we don't like momentum, so we're going to get rid of it. And it's just an excuse to introduce a concept of acceleration. That's when they start playing the game, because you don't accelerate in gravity at the same rate that you acquire velocity. So your momentum increases more than your average acceleration could justify. So they're the ones contriving a math, not doing the real math. Okay, so have the same kinetic, they will compress the spring the same. You can get the result using only Newton's laws. Take Newton's second law, which is what I just stated. You said this is the right equation for Newton's second law. What I said is that's how Newton wrote it. And again, there's no reason to believe that Newton wrote it for the purpose of you saying, I just smashed two things into each other. How much energy did I transfer? That's not what the formula's for. The formula's for things moving in a constant force. So again, you're just completely breaking, such a fundamental rule. And again, conventional physics acknowledges that this law is only supposed to be used in circumstances where there's a constant force. That's why the time element is there at all. If you get rid of the time element, all you have is F equals mv. All you're really saying is whatever your force is, it's going to add or subtract momentum. And the force is essentially a clunk of momentum. And how much momentum are you applying per second? That's what gravity does. It applies momentum per second to objects. That's what makes them move. It applies momentum. All right, and solve it. So again, why would I need to solve something that's so simple? It doesn't need to be solved. It's an equation, like 2 plus 2 equals 4. It doesn't. What are you going to simplify 2 plus 2 equals 4 into something else? What are you going to simplify it into? So just absolute horseshit. Okay, so we'll move on to some other stupid comments. All right, should be back. All right, so the Cyrus Thornton guy. Just a despicable liar now. Can't even come close to making a reasonable argument. So we'll just read this crap. Sorry. I want to be fair to it, so I'll read it, but it's really just rubbish and irrelevant. But let's go through it. The ultimate proof. So he keeps talking as if they've proven something. So again, the only evidence I've seen so far is the evidence I've provided in terms of what a professor has said or what somebody doing a decent experiment says. Other than that, we don't have what's the evidence on your side of the table. Again, you have the completely inconclusive results of Stephen Bro. That is, some of his wacky experiments indicate one thing, the other wacky experiment indicates something else. So completely useless in terms of understanding anything, gleaning any facts, because the evidence is completely contradictory. Okay. But it's really not, in the sense that you can see the obvious flaws in his silly experiments, like the staple one, for example. Anyway, the ultimate proof was performed, and the experiment has consistently been seen by all people on Earth. So I don't know what retarded country this guy lives in. Claims to be some sort of educated person. Okay, and that's, whatever. Follow along. Yeah, whatever. So let's understand. I just responded to his silly argument about escape velocity having something to do with mv squared. Now, clearly Newton knew escape velocity of Earth. Newton was kind of a professional on the subject of gravity, frankly. Knew a lot of stuff about gravity. And he didn't derive it with any kinetic energy formula. This is absolute nonsense. All this argument is about is they claim they can tell us how much a little bit of dynamite, the charge that moves a bullet, they can tell us it's 2,000 joules, or they can say it's 2 joules. How are you going to know the difference? Well, you're kind of not, right? But they say it takes 2,000 joules to make the dime go 1,000 miles an hour, and it only takes 2 joules to make the 2-liter bottle go 1 mile an hour. On its face, it doesn't make any sense. Does it make sense to you? I'm sorry for you then. But anyway, let's play along. Let's review the incorrect statement on DraftScience overview, blah, 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 in which these fictional opinions are stated regarding kinetic energy. So just more hyperbole bullshit you don't need in here. Just make your argument, retard. Okay, F equals E equals P. Yes, force equals energy equals momentum. Now, I just showed how basically Newton was saying exactly the same thing. I mean, he didn't have the word energy, so they didn't have as complex a vocabulary or as precise a vocabulary as we have now. And they use things like quality or quantity of motion, terms that aren't great. But the idea would be is if Newton was alive today, I'm pretty sure Newton would also say, well, don't forget about heat. Okay, because it's all the same thing. All of this stuff is the same stuff. It's just molecular movement. It's mass moving a velocity. That's what makes the universe work. Newton understood that, and F equals m. No, not F equals F equals change in momentum over change in time is overtly saying it. It's telling you quite explicitly the two quantities. There's an equal sign. The two quantities are essentially the same thing. If you got some momentum, the force that gave it to you equals that momentum. Okay. Everything in the universe that you're going to call energy or force or momentum, DraftScience, yes, I'm so he's just making quotes for me. So what? The volume will be the same. So when I use the word volume, I'm talking about when you multiply the velocity times the mass. So it's that simple. You have a small platform of mass, you can have a very high velocity. You have a big platform of mass, you have a very low velocity. So the level that's on the platform equal each other. So I can just turn the big platform this way, inverse the velocity to mass ratio, and I get the same volume. That's the momentum. All right. The volume will be the same. That is your mass times your velocity. So again, these are all fine. Nothing wrong with any of these quotes so far. Kinetic energy, that just can't be the physical reality. So these are completely useless, okay? No context at all. All there is momentum. Momentum is the right answer. Momentum always the right answer. That's how he wrote it. Was always the right answer. So, again, and so why don't we just put Professor Lewin in here too? Okay? You can't screw with momentum. Okay? So we'll put Professor Lewin in here too. Just to complete the argument, just so you understand that you're arguing with Professor Lewin also. All right, it's all just mysticism, religious notions, and voodoo. Well, I've already shown that. That's exactly what the history is. There's been no counter-argument explaining how the history doesn't absolutely suck. No one's explained how clay doesn't have a bias for velocity, by the way. No one's explained how that isn't true. Just as cornstarch has a bias against velocity, clay has a bias for velocity. Has anybody countered those arguments anywhere? No. Has anybody explained how clay really does capture total energy perfectly? No. And the reason why this stupid mv squared stupid formula exists is because of these stupid aberrant experiments where people do an experiment and they do the one where it just doesn't look the same. Well, it doesn't look the same for a reason. Because they don't understand, like Stephen Bro, concepts like friction. They don't understand those concepts. You have to account for them. All right. That caused the existence of mv squared, DraftScience. Okay, some more. Again, all of these quotes do what? You're proving what in what way? Because they're all saying a lot of different things. But anyway, the rest of the critics don't seem to provide any argument. So how are you countering any of that? Because your argument is non-existent. Okay, kinetic energy only exists for silly reasons. Yes, it's a fact. It does not exist for any scientific reasons. Exactly, it's a fact. And you're not going to counter it with this mush you keep throwing at us. Okay, commentary. NASA, European Space Agency, JADAX, whatever the fuck that is, blah, 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 would all disagree. So he's saying they would disagree. So he's talking for them again. He talks for all of these agencies. And what is he talking for them where? With what facts? Oh, that's right, no facts. No experiments done by NASA demonstrating any of what he says to be true. Nothing. Okay. As they have all proven the kinetic energy equals. No, they haven't proven any of it. So again, you can assert a proof, but where's the example of the proof? Where's the evidence of the proof? You have no evidence. No physical evidence. Zero. These agencies have all launched rockets in or deep space probes, right? And they've had to navigate them. So talk about their navigation and how the NASA scientists are as dumb as Piro and think it takes 2,000 joules to shoot a dime 1,000 miles an hour, and it only takes 2 joules of energy to shoot 2 kilograms at 1 mile an hour. So you're saying the NASA engineers are really stupid, and they actually think it takes more energy to throw the dime off their ship. I mean, amazing. In which these vehicles reached escape velocity. So again, Newton calculated escape velocity without mv squared. So let's understand, this is just such a silly argument to make. There's nothing essential about understanding your silly extra kinetic energy wooey formula to understanding the gravitational escape velocity, because it doesn't have anything to do with how much actual energy is involved. It just has to do with understanding how the energy is applied. All right, from Earth's gravitational field, the calculation is both solely on Ke equals negative potential energy. So again, this is so obvious. Yes, it also equals momentum equals minus momentum. The momentum of whatever counter force. So as Newton understood the force to be momentum, clearly Newton was arguing that yes, how you're going to move is going to be solely based on whether you can counter the force. That is, if you're applying more momentum in a direction, then you'll overcome the force. So again, just complete horseshit that now we're supposed to believe that kinetic energy formula is essential to understanding the difference between potential energy, that is environmental energy, and the energy you possess. You can't understand that you can move your energy into the environment and then receive it back from the environment. Oh no, we can't understand that without your theory. No, Newton understood it, so yes, it's completely understandable without your silly nonsense. So it's just a lie to say it's essential in any way, just as it's a lie to say we wouldn't have digital toasters without quantum mechanics. Okay, kinetic energy and potential energy. So now, I already complained about this perversion of the meaning of kinetic energy by contrasting it to potential energy when there's absolutely no reason to believe in their silly theory. Newton knew what potential energy was. Okay, and he didn't believe in kinetic energy. So don't keep pretending these are essential concepts. You can't understand potential energy until you understand kinetic energy. No, all you have to understand is momentum, and all you have to understand is that forces are in different directions. Here is the summary conclusion to verify kinetic energy. There's no conclusion, there's no evidence. Every time one of these agencies sends a vehicle up, so again, going through the atmosphere, this has nothing to do with any of the statements made. This has nothing to do with the fact that you think, a tiny amount of gunpowder has 2,000 joules of energy in it. Okay. It is proven KE in the real physical universe for all people to witness. So again, just more hyperbole, just insane nonsense. Absolutely nothing to witness. We witness no evidence that there's any such thing as kinetic energy. We all know there is such a thing as motion. And again, I can just re-quote, Professor Lewin. You can't change, momentum. You can't fuck with it. And you're the one saying you can. Okay, for the most part, only the flat earth crowd does not accept kinetic energy reality. I would say only the flat earth crowd would, only people just as dumb as the flat earthers would say Professor Lewin is wrong because he thinks momentum has to be conserved. And that kinetic energy is the fudgeable mush. Escape velocity calculations used in physics and space. So again, escape velocity has nothing to do with navigating space. It has nothing to do with landing the lunar module on the moon. It has nothing to do with any of the arguments I've made. It's completely abstract and separate from it. And Newton did not calculate it using mv squared. So just understand, Newton knew he could calculate that you had to go, 22,000 meters a second to escape the Earth's gravity, to be free of it forever. And let's understand, it's just because gravity does this thing, right? To get the first mile off of Earth is the same amount of energy it takes to go 1 trillion miles once you're 1 billion miles away. So when you're 1 billion miles away, you can go 1 trillion miles on the same ounce of fuel that got you, say, a mile. So the same amount of fuel that gets you 1 mile off the surface is the same amount of fuel you'll use to go 1 trillion miles once you're 1 billion miles away. That's how disproportional it is. So escape velocity just really means there's a certain point, just like terminal velocity when you're free falling. When you're free falling, everything goes fine until the atmosphere starts piling up. And now all of a sudden you can't gain any velocity. But you never really reach your terminal velocity. You just keep incrementally moving 1/millionth of a centimeter, not a millionth, a centimeter. You go a centimeter faster, a centimeter faster, a centimeter. You tiny little increase in your velocity. Okay, so you could free fall for 50 hours, and you did all your changing in the first 4 seconds, and after that, nothing really changed much. You just, you change your velocity this much. Some tiny little thread of velocity change. Anyway, but Newton knew all this stuff, so it's just absolute bullshit. So none of this is a real. Newton didn't have to calculate it this way. It has nothing to do with joules and all this energy crap. It just has to do with, yes, of course, if you're going to say kinetic energy is in the thing, that there's 2,000 joules in a little tiny packet of dynamite. If you're going to make up a fairy tale of the origin of the energy, then of course you can have a fairy tale on the outside. So it's just as long as you keep your fairy tales consistent, you can get away with it. But it's not the truth. And none of this was done on the web page. So again, none of it was calculated from mv squared. So it's just absolute horseshit. All right, for him to pretend there's any need to mess with mv squared to do the calculation for escape velocity. It says right here, escape velocity equals square root 2g mt. Okay, so you don't need any 1/2 mv squared in the formula. And the fact that you can derive one formula out of another formula with complete contrivances doesn't mean a goddamn thing. I mean, I don't even know what this says. V greater than 2. Yeah, so who knows? But obviously it has to do with the fact that your acceleration is always less than your acquired velocity, the rate of acceleration. But anyway, all right, so DraftScience math. So this will be some more lies, no doubt. Remember the KE video, DraftScience math predicted a penny falling from the top of the Empire State Building would take 77 seconds to impact the ground. So it's just a lie. It never happened. There was he'll never show that in the video. So obviously that didn't happen. So he's just saying, I've only drawn Newton's, essentially, in Newton's equation. So again, this is just such a fucking lie. Just pulled out of his ass lie. All right, when the real world experiment was timed at 8.8 seconds. And again, the dime or the penny or anything you throw off the Empire State Building also acquires a terminal velocity. Because there is enough air resistance to slow it down a little bit. The friction error was substituting F equals ma. So again, when I said F equals ma, I was doing it completely in the context of the change in your momentum. It doesn't equal your momentum doesn't change. And again, he's talking about another constantly applied force. None of these examples of exchanging energy have anything to do with a constantly applied force. So these aren't environments where there's a constant force. So again, they just keep, it's one of the fundamental rules of mathematics that you don't apply a formula that isn't supposed to be applied. And clearly, formulas that are time-based are not formulas that are going to have anything to do with final velocities or final momentum. All right, the failed acceleration results invalidate the function's opinion and force equals momentum. So again, because he's going to pervert what I said, so when I made the analogy, I'm just saying the force does equal momentum. It equals momentum. Okay, so in any circumstance, the amount of force you're going to apply, like 200 joules of force, you will get 200 joules of change in your momentum. That's what I simply said. Now, he's perverting that to say that I'm not going to bother with the time equation anymore, okay, and then do a timed equation. I don't know how to put it, but, he's saying, obviously you have to do an integral to find out how something moves through gravity because it's acquiring more and more velocity. At the same time, it's getting the same force added to it. And he's just perverted the math now to say that my simple statement, my restatement of Newton is basically saying, look, if we know time is 1, if we just eliminate the time factor and go with the momentum final will be a consequence of the force that was applied. And the force will essentially equal whatever your change in momentum is. Okay. So, momentum equals minus PE. So, whatever that means. No, sorry. So, the algebra, we're not going to bother with this. This is absolute nonsense. So, again, he's just making up equations I didn't write. He's making up arguments I didn't make. So, this is all just complete crap. Again, Newton solved for escape velocity. So again, he's just lying to say I've somehow advocated for something other than Newton's math, and in some way by just restating making the simple argument that if we make the time factor, if we say time is irrelevant, we just want to know initial and final, that the force applied will be equal to the change in your momentum. Therefore, the force is essentially momentum. Momentum changes momentum. All right, there is no situation which momentum doesn't give you reasonable answers. Right, so he's saying Newton couldn't calculate escape velocity correctly. Right? That's just, the statement is just saying Newton got the right answers. He's saying Newton got the wrong answer. All right, so let's just be clear. Attacking what I said, as I said, nothing inconsistent with reasonable interpretations of Newton. So there's no reason to think Newton couldn't calculate escape velocity. Just an absolute lie. Okay, conclusion. DraftScience opinion, kinetic energy and energy momentum function. Math, velocity, invalid. So again, he's proven nothing to be invalid. He's just, distortion is all these people have. All they can do is lie and distort. They can't provide any reasoning, and they can't provide any logic, and they can't provide any evidence. Space agencies do not have their science on mysticism. Do not base their science on mysticism. That's right. They didn't use your fake formula to land on the moon. That's just the facts. Okay? Religious notions, voodoo, are simple analogies. In this documentation, the engineering is based on... No, it isn't. So again, he says that there's some engineering based on this. Calculating escape velocity does not require any notion of kinetic energy. So you're just lying about the facts. Frankly, any second-year student, again, yes, students of what? Certainly not Professor Lewin's students. So you can lie some more, right? Because Professor Lewin's students don't believe what you believe. They think you have to conserve momentum. We'll have rigorously learned mathematics. So again, he thinks F equals change in momentum over change in time. You can't understand that. That is not a 2 + 2 equation. It needs to be interpreted by a mathematician. You can't understand it. Okay, it's not possible to understand it for what it says right on its face, which is if I apply a force, I'm applying a change in momentum. Okay, dependent on a professor on YouTube jockey. So, okay, and is not dependent on a professor or YouTube jockey to tell you anything. So the students know the professor's full of shit, and they come up with the right answer because they're called students, and students automatically get right answers. I don't know. The student has the skills to do the math and validate and invalidate any claim or theory. Right. Too bad they don't rely on evidence. Oh, so fucking idiotic. All right, for confirmation of the correct application of escape velocity. So here we go again. The correct application of escape velocity should not be understood from Isaac Newton, the gravitational expert, the guy who invented understanding gravity. He's not the source. He's a terrible source. He'll give you the wrong answer. What a pile of crap. Okay, so I'm not going back to the same bullshit pages that have nothing to do with kinetic energy. So again, escape velocity has nothing to do with the kinetic energy formula and its validity. Absolutely nothing. The only thing it'll tell you is they can make up the energy source to be anything they want. They can make as many joules come out of the rocket engine as they want. They just say it. 1,000,000 joules came out. Well, or 500,000 joules. Who cares? Yeah, they can just make it up. Okay, if you want to see the, how do they measure how much thrust is coming out of the engine? Well, let's see how fast it makes something go. Okay, yeah, that's how they test it. So if they use the kinetic energy theory to decide the thing has 500 joules when it left because of its velocity and its mass, well, then of course they'll just say, yes, rocket fuel creates 500. Even though the right answer is the momentum number, which was 200. So I'm just saying, you could use either formula from beginning to end and they'll work just fine. So as long as you can test how much joules are in your fuel with the argument you're making for an assumption, it is all going to be circular. If you're testing with the same thing, you're relying on it giving you the answer, then of course you're going to get the same answer. It's like setting the scale in Celsius versus Fahrenheit. You can't change the real temperature, but of course you can change the numbers all you want. Okay, if you want to see the fictional DraftScience math predicts penny. Okay, so he's saying, I predicted a penny will take 77 seconds to impact the ground from atop the Empire State Building. So there is nothing in this video that says that. So let's play it from his time code. You want to know what's the constant force? That's what this equation is trying to tell you. Yes, a constant force. Now, none of the dropping the penny is gravity again. So it's a constant force. So again, where did I say that in the circumstance of a constant force, you have to add up all the forces that's constantly being applied? Oh, that's right. I didn't say it anywhere. I didn't say gravity is a one-time force. When I let go of the penny, gravity hits it, and that's the last thing gravity has to do with it. Did I say that? That's why he's saying it takes 77 seconds, because I only give it one clump of gravity, and that's it. It's not in gravity for the rest of the fall. Of course, I didn't say anything like that. So just a big fat lie. It's not trying to tell you how much total force there is. Yeah, unless you do the integral. Unless you do all of the integral of all of the time it takes from the point you let it go to the point it hits the ground. You have to calculate for all of the gravity added and all of the velocity incidentally created by that. And I didn't say anything different, liar. And you're just that. You're just a liar. I probably don't need this. All right. Okay, if you want to see the fictional draft science implication that kinetic energy is silly and serves no scientific purpose and does not exist, see the comment at dozens of real world utility. Dozens of real world utility. So there's a comment at this video. Well, I'm not going through the comments on the video. So he gave a time code. How much energy it used. That is, it's not biased. Or you understand the bias. So this is the very important concept in understanding that, you have to be very careful how you collect energy or it's going to fool you. So if you use cornstarch, you're going to think heavy things going slow have so much more energy than fast things. And if you do it collecting it with clay, you're going to get exactly the opposite impression. And you as scientists don't agree with that, right? You science defenders don't understand that concept, that you have to be very careful how, in doing experiments, not to misinterpret your results, not to be fooled by ferrocells. You don't think that's a concept everybody should be very, very aware of as a scientist. People are just so despicable. Oh, just terrible. Okay, keep in mind, DraftScience is aware of these comments. I made a video pointing out how I thought your other argument about escape velocity was complete horseshit. Yeah, but still made today's video. I made the video to point out you're an idiot. Okay, scientific integrity, right? Yeah, that's how it works. Somebody's got to counter-argue the bullshit. You presented an idiotic argument that NASA says kinetic energy is real, and the proof is absolutely non-existent. You didn't show me how NASA thinks a dime going 1,000 miles an hour has 2,000 times the energy of 2 kilograms going 1 mile an hour. Where did you show me that NASA believes, deep in its heart, all the way to its balls, okay, that 2 kilograms going 1 mile an hour has 1,000 times less energy than a dime going 1,000 miles an hour? Where did you show me that NASA thinks that? Oh, that's right, you didn't. You just put those idiotic, moronic, silly words in NASA's mouth. Because NASA knows that's not goddamn true, frankly. It already knows it. And NASA's a bit of a coward, frankly. NASA knows there's no gravitational lensing, okay? NASA knows it because NASA hasn't seen it in all the places it should. Okay, by Einstein's theory, they should have seen suns, okay, stars lensed way outside of the sun's corona. And yet they've never seen any lensing effect by our sun anywhere outside the corona of the sun. Anywhere outside of there where it's clear space, where there's good viewing, no lensing. Only in the dirty spot can they see it. All right. So, to the commentors of the comment. Hate to tell you, but neither Draft nor his cult. So again, just where's the evidence of this cult? I mean, it's just such a stupid. What do you got? You got the JPDG Richie guy who just says, "Yeah, let's get this argument settled. Let's get some real evidence." That's the definition of a cult. Oh man, you people are so pathetic. Can follow a single line of math. Well, I can certainly understand 2 plus 2, and I can understand F equals momentum over the irrelevancy of time, right? Because I can just make time 1 second. There, 1. So F equals momentum. Change in momentum equals F. Well, that's the same thing as saying if my momentum was 0 when I started, then it's exactly the same thing as saying momentum equals your final, force equals your final momentum. What momentum did you get? Oh, you got the momentum you have. Well, the force gave it to you, so the force essentially is momentum. Yeah, I can do that math. I just did it for you. Will you counter-argue that simple argument? No chance. Okay. And people outside his cult, some more just silly, already laugh at him. Yes, I'm going to have he who laughs laugh last hardest, right? And again, I have every intention of people getting a good laugh making selfies of them pissing on your grave. I hope those people really, really get a great laugh. I want everybody to have a beer, okay, and then go piss on the grave of one of these fuckers. Okay, because I want them soaking in urine for eternity, because their behavior is so despicable. They're such lying sacks of fucking shit. But it's all one person, frankly. This is all the fucking troll with his 4 million sock accounts. This is just Farley again. Bob Stay is just Farley. Okay, so whom are you trying to convince? So again, the argument is that Newton couldn't figure out how to calculate escape velocity in gravity. Newton was too stupid because he didn't have the famous and great Leibniz magical living force formula. I mean, these are religious kooks, frankly. Just understand, they're religious kooks. That's all that's running physics now, is religious nuts. Okay, regardless of whether this falls on deaf ears or not, I appreciate your effort and detailed exposition. So where was the detail? Where was there a detailed piece of evidence? Where was there any evidence at all? Oh, that's right, it doesn't exist. No evidence. Okay, hopefully this moves the conversation forward. Well, why would you think it would move the conversation forward? Where in that pile of crap you just read did you see anything compelling that told you, yes, I see why it's essential? Yes, you proved Newton didn't know how to calculate escape velocity, that Newton never calculated escape velocity from Earth because he didn't have Leibniz's magical formula. When I think you know that didn't happen, shithead. And you're a shithead for this, whatever this. Hopefully this moves the conversation forward. The guy obviously just made a bunch of lies about how somehow I predicted it would take 77 seconds for a penny to land on the street from the Empire State Building, when I made no such prediction, quite obviously. So you just keep sucking up and licking the face of these fucking liars, and I'm supposed to say, good pig. Well, you know, well done, pig. What's that famous line? That'll do, pig. Yeah, no, I'm not going to say that, because that won't do, shithead. I'm not going to take that as anything but, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, this is a lame, useless sack of shit argument. You really think that the kinetic energy formula is proven by escape velocity? Fuck. Alright, anyway. So no doubt the troll again. J.P. Ritchie. How much you want to bet Draft will skim right over the math? So I didn't skim over anything. So that's just a lie. He barely understands 5th grade fractions. Well, apparently I understand them all better than you, because you're so fucking stupid that you think it takes 2,000 times more energy to move a dime 1,000 miles an hour than it takes to move 2 kilograms 1 mile an hour. You can't even figure that art. You're so fucking stupid. Okay, zero algebra. I mean, all of this, zero calculus. You're mentioning everything as if, yes, I'm totally disabled. I can't do any math at all. What a pile of crap. Yeah, I really don't get entirely calculus. I get it, get the geometry of it. I just say it would be easier, instead of doing these integrals, okay, is to just model it. Just model it and then make a container or make a physical object and actually measure the physical distance. Put a bunch of triangles in it. See how many triangles fit. That'll tell you a close enough answer. Why do I need to do it? Put it on a piece of graph paper. Okay, take the concept, put it on a piece of graph paper, just count the number of squares. I mean, fuck. Why do it the hard way when you can do it the easy way? All right. It's all woo, invented by pencil necks to fool the world. No, you're just idiots. You're all religious kooks. That's what's been demonstrated since Leibniz. You're all sitting there forcing science to meet your expectations. You're going to force science to match your religious, metaphysical bullshit ideals. Okay, that's all you're demonstrating, is you're still in the fucking smoke of religion. You still haven't walked out and taken a breath of fresh fucking air and looked at the world as what it is, not what you wish it to be. You're just religious kooks. Okay. I love listening to him using his favorite word, vector. Well, it's about as most important concept there is in physics, I would argue, is the direction that the energy is moving. Let's see, how important could the direction the energy is moving be? Could that be at all important in physics? I mean, in how the universe works, is where the energy is moving in space? Well, I guess that could be important. Anyway, just hilarious. After he thought he had eventually learned it last year. So just more lies. Okay, I can go back to at least 5 years ago when I was playing the Susskind video where he's using the word vector. Okay, his new vector word for his wooey bent space vector, and pointing out the difference. You know, that all there are real vectors. But anyway, of course he still hasn't got a clue, just more horseshit. Hence his confusion over why momentum is a vector and k is a scalar. So more just a complete. I mean, there's no way to rationally justify what they say here. You know, because every single time you do a kinetic energy formula, you have to establish plus and minus. You have to turn it into vectors. So it's just an absolute lie to say there's something special about a scalar, and scalars are completely different than, you know. So again, just imagine you have MV and you put a 1/2 in front of it and then a square over here, and somehow now it's completely different quantity. It's entirely different. You added a 1, a 2, and 2 2s, and now somehow that's completely changed. It's a whole different thing now. Oh no, it isn't. Oh, just amazing. I mean, amazing they keep going back to that argument as if they think that's a good argument. I think any reasonable person knows I've outed that nonsense. That there's nothing magical about mv squared. When Leibniz proposed it, he wasn't going, look at this, I have a scalar. See, this scalar thing is completely unknown. It's going everywhere, in every direction. Oh, bullshit, he thought so. All right. He made quite an angry fool of himself in the argument on CNPS a couple years back when he became evident he didn't know the difference between a vector and a scalar. And again, I still would claim there is no such difference if you're going to sit there and give the scalar a direction. As soon as you give the scalar a direction, it's no longer a scalar, shithead. All right, a derivative and a derivation of an ion and an isotope. Yeah, I did transpose the word ion and isotope in a couple of videos. So what? You know, meaningless mistakes. Much fun has had by all at poor draft's expense. Well, I'm certainly not feeling that expense, but anyway, in that debate. So there was nothing. They have won no debates here. There's nothing they've demonstrated with any kind of reasoning and evidence. Okay, if nothing else, this will further solidify DraftScience as a conspiracy kook. And again, what will be established, hopefully, again, this is just the Farley again. You know, just this despicable troll who keeps inventing multiple accounts so he can make multiple stupid comments because he has to be important in the world. He's fighting for God. Okay, his great quest to stop the forcing science not to be a silly religion. And so proud of himself. So is Stephen. He's so proud of himself as a little fighter for God. All right, you seem to like an honest person just trying to do the right thing. So he's talking to JPG, which is hilarious. So anyway, in another context, I mean, I could go to the other video and read the silly comments there. There's so many silly places. I mean, there's comments everywhere. I mean, silly ones. But anyway, Stephen he actually did the apparently 19-pound. So he rolled 19-pound film canisters. And he is somehow now going to prove that the half-mass film canister or object will somehow not go half the velocity. So unlike what Professor Lewin, he's going to prove Professor Lewin wrong, okay? And there is no inverse relationship regarding momentum. So he's going to use the same force, and he's going to make the heavy thing is going to go, what's his argument? It's going to go much faster. Okay, it's only going to be, the fast thing is only going to go 0.4 times faster. So he's going to provide the great evidence by using 19-pound film canisters and a pool table. I mean, I can't even imagine how silly this experiment is going to be. But anyway, But that's what we all have that to look forward to. You know, he's got the evidence now. So he's saying that, yes, it completely confirms their side. He's proven it. And so we just have to wait for his great experimental evidence. Too fucking stupid. I mean, you can just imagine even the simplest thing, right? He probably has a change in he's probably put them on a pitch that's like a micrometer different in height. So, the less you move a lever, the more exacting you have to be in terms of how much the pitch has changed. That little tiny difference makes a huge difference, and being just a tiny millimeter off ruins your results. And so the only way you could do the experiment is you have to have a long distance to roll the objects so you can guarantee your results. And he didn't do any of that, I bet. I mean, it's just too stupid. He could have used 1-pound objects, and he goes and he decides to use 19-pound objects. I mean, it's just on his face so fucking stupid. I'm going to simulate a bowling alley. No, you're not. There's not a chance you're going to actually do that, retard. Oh. And when I'm not just poking fun at Gary, you can't poke anything at anything. You're fucking goddamn clown. All right, at Gary in revenge for the horrible way he treated me when he learned I had a mental illness. So again, he's again claiming that this thing called Asperger's is some kind of true, real mental defect. It's a real concept. Yeah, it's not like I don't want to disease. No, that's not what it is at all. I got addicted to video game disease. That's not what it is at all. yeah, it is. I don't want to face reality disease. Yes, that's all it is. I have Asperger's. I don't want to face reality either. I, too, am just trying to do the right thing and would never let it alter the results of experiments. I mean, what a liar. Oh, pathetic. If Gary did ever happen to be right, so whatever. Why do you even say those things? Okay, it sounds like you're pausing. Like you're setting up yourself to be able to be proven wrong. And that Gary is right. Why would you even imagine if Gary did ever happen to be right? Why are you even giving them any kind of credible thought? I never even imagined a flat earther possibly being right because it's so ludicrous. Why are you giving me that benefit of the doubt? Curious. Like you have some doubt about your own integrity as a scientist, maybe. Maybe you watched your own experiments and were so busy laughing that you say, wait, that's not the right reaction. I shouldn't be laughing at my experiment. Okay, but there's a major problem for you. To be unaware. I can probably best explain if I ask you to watch just 2 minutes of an old video I made especially to help Gary about 3 years ago. So he's just going on and on about this old crap where I kept saying, quit spending money. Quit spending money. And he kept saying, I like spending money. I mean, this literally happened. Okay, I kept telling him, quit doing this. And he kept doing it. I've ordered some more crap. Why? I would ask. Look, I got 17 of these things. But you only need 2. I mean, it was just too stupid. One where I was desperately trying to show him the difference between... I mean, you can't stay on the subject for a minute, right? So I already conceded I made a mistake, okay, in converting, again, the term diamagnetism and paramagnetism. I was reversing them. Okay, I made a mistake, all right? That's it. It wasn't some theoretical mistake. It was just a verbiage mistake. Oh, it's just amazing. And Lenz's law break effect. So again, my contention is the Lenz's law is being misunderstood. Okay, there's no real currents. Just like there's nothing swirling around a magnet, you idiot. Okay, because he had been making some embarrassing silly... Oh, he just keeps going on and on. Okay, Professor Loom was wrong or mistaken. Yes, well, prove it again. Will he do that? No. All based on his 10 years of believing whatever this maglev trains float on rails. What? I never said any such thing, you fucking liar. So just more horse shit. Okay, due to paramagnetism. Yeah, I said it, and what is it really? Yeah, it's the other thing, diamagnetism. It doesn't matter. It's induced magnetic effect. Oh, I mean, this is just, it's impossible. This guy is such, he'll just sit there and, none of what I've done. He'll look for, like, this is a dance, right? And I performed 7,000 correct steps. And yes, a couple of steps have gone south. And he's obsessed on them. It has nothing to do with the overall performance, which is I've demonstrated quite decisively, okay, in the sense that not one of you has in any way challenged those 3 videos. So I have the video, what is energy, what is a photon, and what is gravity. Have you challenged anything in those videos? No. Which is impossible for 2 reasons. Okay, well, we're not even going to bother. We'll go down to the next thing. Now, the reason I hope you will have a quick look at just the start of that video so you can bear witness to the fact that it's very obviously clear. So again, he's going back years to re-argue a subject that's already long dead. I've already conceded I was mistaken. I was using the terms inappropriately, and here he is just obsessing about it. Go back to that, and it proves something. No, it doesn't prove a damn thing. All right, well, anyway. I'll save you, although it can be easy to find. Here he goes again. So let's see. He said, he's completely off the subject now. Just completely off the subject. So here he is just about to release his great expose, showing exactly how I'm wrong about kinetic energy. Why the fuck would he be talking about these subjects? Why the fuck would he be doing that? He's gonna prove I've wasted the last 9 months of my life. I've completely wasted them arguing kinetic energy, and he's gonna show it and prove it and decisively win this argument. And I should be pissed on for eternity for being such a fool, being so fucking stupid not to be completely enthralled by Leibniz's brilliant physics. And Deschardelet's wonderful clay experiments. I am such an asshole for doubting any of that crap, and he's gonna prove it right now. I mean, the release date should be right now, any hour now, any minute now. That's his promise again. Another promise that he'll never keep. It's supposed to happen right now. He's going to do that big proof. And here he is talking about magnetism. What the fuck? Do you think this guy really has the evidence? Oh, I don't think so. Okay. I don't doubt raisins probably do contain incredibly small quantities of iron. No, your blood contains enough iron to be moved by a magnet, frankly. That's been proven by a ferrocell. You can put your blood in the ferrocell, and it works. Anyway. It's very difficult to record, so from the same... well, I'm not sure you can, actually, because that was a Ken Wheeler video, now that I think about it. Never mind. It looks like it might be pushing or touching the raisin. Okay, so here he's like I said, what's the point? It's just completely off the fucking subject. So he's playing a 3-year-old video on a subject I've already conceded I was wrong on. Oh, and this is his example of using magnets and moving raisins around. So again, he's so obsessed with his own little personal experiments, and fuck the rest of the world and all those experiments. The reason I want to see this, just so you know what we are all up against. Well, whatever. This is just such a waste of time. My reward, being told the biggest pile of dog poop explanation as to what he considered the real explanation behind Lenz's law breaking effect. So again, he keeps arguing a point I've already conceded I was wrong on. Amazing. If you can see the rate... Oh, he's still going on. Okay, so he's completely off the subject, right? I mean, we can all concede he's completely off the subject, right? Okay, so here we go. Let's see. I was as optimistic as you seem to be at first, and then for a long time, but after years, I think we all start to realize, oh, he's not pretending. This is someone who's enjoying denying everything shown to him. So again, he hasn't shown anything. What am I denying? That you wrote the word Gary's cheat over a spring experiment for no rational reason? That there was nothing about the spring experiment that deserved to be maligned as inferior to all the other experiments you did, was it? Was there something about the spring experiment that was overtly inferior to all the other methods of collecting energy? Were springs somehow innately suspect? No, springs are exactly the opposite. They're the thing that has the least suspect. They've been reliable in so many circumstances at being very good at storing energy. And here you are maligning springs. For no good reason except your own personal agenda. Okay, I'm continuing my 16 by 8 pound bowling ball. So this is a lie, right? Because he says in the other video he did it. Alright, and he already got the results. Type experiments after coming up with some improvements worth documenting. So just, yeah, I'm sure. I can't even imagine. But anyway, but I'm under the no illusion it will be utterly pointless for explaining to Gary. Oh no, if you can demonstrate that you can create this 1.4 velocity, that'll be pretty impressive, frankly. But you won't do it in any kind of scientific way. Gary has already made up his mind about everything. Oh, so it's not about the evidence, it's about Gary's making up his mind. I thought your point was to argue to the rest of the world and show how I'm wrong. So instead of showing how I'm wrong, you're just going to talk that I'm wrong. So again, just more talk, no walk. Alright, that's why he never does experiments. So another lie that I never do experiments. Just a big fat fucking lie. What I don't do is experiments I don't think I'm capable of doing. And one of the ones I don't think I would be capable of is being able to roll 19-pound things inside my house and have any hope of collecting the energy rationally. Okay, they would be pointless. I can just imagine. He's got them going like, what, 5 miles? I mean, I can't even imagine how slow he must be rolling them. And that how terribly meticulous you'd have to be about the lever you're rolling them down at that slow speed. The margin of error in the experiment goes up dramatically when you try to move big heavy things tiny amounts. All right, this is mental illness, I guess. Seeing I ought to have some sympathy. Fuck you in the ass till dead. You know, why should anybody have sympathy for cretins like you? I mean, you're a fucking lying sack of smelly, dirty, crappy shit. Okay, and you can't get what you deserve too quickly from me. Alright. There are many other reasons I don't like the guy, but salient point I really want to get across to you here is that he will say black is white, and you're supposed to be proving otherwise. Are you doing any of it, or are you just saying it? I have the experiment. I did the experiment. I have. So on his own video, he said he already did the experiment and has the results. And what's all this qualifying here? All this mush. This is such a shit talker. I mean, really, you're just such a lying, slandering sack of shit. You know, I wish you lived in a civilized country where that would be punished by the law. If you want more recent examples, so here he is off the subject again. A few weeks ago, he missed the wording of someone who said in a comment, physics is not always intuitive. What? Gary missed out the word not. Yes, so what? Oh, gee. What a catastrophe. Oh, the world is coming to an end because somebody misread a comment and got the wrong impression. Oh my, what'll we do? I mean, how do we compensate for that? Won't the whole world have to come to an end? Oh, God, I can't even, there's no words for just how insane this fucker is. Alright, Gary is simply an idiot, and you're simply an insane fucking lunatic. A despicable, duplicitous, hypocritical, lying sack of shit. To sit there and imply you have evidence of something, and here you are just running away from the argument now. Just running as fast as you can to any other subject. Because you know your evidence doesn't exist. It sucks once again. Okay, an unfair idiot. What was so difficult about saying, whoops? I'm sure I did. There's no, there's just absolutely no point. If some fucktard is going to sit there and change the subject to, you misunderstood a comment and called somebody a poop when he wasn't being poopy. I mean, amazing crap. He's changing the subject to that. Oh, fuck. I mean, and if you were relevant to the world in some way, you might appreciate. Well, we'll give it time. Just wait till you're getting it. when you get what you support. Wait till if there's a day when you're going to get what you have asked for, and we'll see how you handle it, fucktard. So anyway, it's probably enough of a video, frankly. So there are more comments. I mean, Piro did have this little interaction where he says some more crazy fucking shit. All right. Oh, it looks like something's been deleted here. Well, that's not good. All right. So, Piro got all offended because this guy basically said, well, can't you just make an argument that explains it? And Piro's like, that has all been done ad nauseum. So he proved it ad nauseum. He's proven that, the same spring makes the half as heavy object go 1.4 times as fast. Now, it's been proven ad nauseum, and and there's so much evidence out there, but Professor Lewin hasn't seen it. I mean, it's just so... And they call me the flat earther. Go figure. So anyway, this will be worth reading eventually. But not today. So anyway. And so I pretty much... I think I gave you a logical proof why the 1.4 thing physically can't be right? I mean, the 1.4 thing really doesn't have a hope. Because if I start with a insanely huge mass, 1 trillion something, okay, and then I say a half a trillion, okay, is 1.4 the energy, right? Well, by the time I get to 5 pounds, there's no energy left, right? Because if I keep losing the energy with each step, I'm losing more and more and more and more of the energy. I can't have any energy. By the time I get to 5 pounds, I'm all out of energy. I'm only getting 1 trillionth of the energy that was, pushing on the big thing. So, it just doesn't work logically. So I can't even believe you people fall for this shit when it doesn't. You can't escape the paradox that creates. You're just so despicable. To believe this absolute nonsense, it doesn't matter what the physicists actually say, and then they say, I'm defending real physics. But it's not the real physics that the professors are teaching. Just amazing. Well, anyway, enough said. All right, so this has been a DraftScience video presentation. Till the next time, when I no doubt will have to defend myself against more preposterous lying by the desperate religious kooks and such.